Welcome back to Lit versus Genre. I am Steve.
And I'm Jeff.
And here we are. It is Nynaeve time up in
The
the
wisdom.
house. The wisdom with not really a lot of wisdom. I don't know. Maybe that's like a really intense name, to have. Like what a title.
Yeah.
I
I'd,
wonder
I'd be down for that. I
what
like that.
you
I
like
like that.
that?
I'd be cool with it.
Do you want me just to refer to you as the wisdom from
Right.
here
Well,
on out?
especially considering she's what in her 20s, right?
Yeah.
So,
I had an interesting question about that. Like I have been seeing her, everybody talks about she's so young, she's so young. And
right,
then later on she talks about though I mean, is she getting this secondhand? She talks about like when
right,
Tam
right.
comes back with
Mhm.
his wife and like
The
she's
kid.
convinced that Rand really was their son, but I'm like, she weren't there. What are you talking about? Wait, is that true? Was she there?
Yeah, I know it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. It's again, it's like we talked about in the early chapters when you're like, just tell me how old Rand is. Do it. It's the same sort of thing with this, right?
Oh, I got it. He's
Like,
12. So he's
yeah.
12 now as well.
Right, he's 12. But no, so the idea is, she was what, like 6 or something, 7, and Tim came back. Maybe she was younger. Because the idea is, I think she's like, mid to late 20s is the idea.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Obviously, we don't get a complete sense. I think the first time I read this, I just assumed she was 30. I don't know. But, when you're a kid, anything over, like when you're
Right.
15, anything over the 20s, it's all the same age.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Almost. So yeah, I mean, she is meant to be older than the kid crew, but young to be a wisdom
It
for the
was
very reason
like
we said. It's wisdom, right?
right, right. It was a good check for me because I don't know, for some reason with everybody always commenting on how young she was, I was just putting her like much closer to the boy's age for some reason. And then here I was like, oh no,
Right.
maybe she's like 40 or something, but that's like young for wisdom. I
Mm,
didn't really like
that
I don't
is
know,
the
I didn't know.
danger, right? That is the total danger of you just have these like wild fluctuations in
Mm,
your head where you're like, okay, she's 40 now. Cool. Awesome. And that, I mean, I just get so into that because on the one hand, it feels like, oh, well, we should just say it. But on the other hand, there's some nice things about kind of, I don't know, I was going to say make the reader work, right? But then also just, I don't know, it's fascinating when you think one thing and then you get swooped to the other. Normally, I find it annoying,
mm.
right? As I'm sure you do too. But I think there are some nice moments where it's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. And then if you go back and look real close, maybe it's supported in the text, right? And then that can be a nice moment.
Yeah. I don't with her I was just like I don't know how old she is. I don't know how old anybody
No,
is.
no, completely. In this case, I understand it's more of a moment of annoyance. Like maybe she's 40 and I don't even care anymore.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
whatever. So, I hear that. I hear that. I do.
Okay, but here's what I want to talk about first, Jeff. This is
Bring
this
it.
is all we'll get to it.
Bring it on.
But
Let's
okay,
do
it
that
starts
moment.
out with probably my favorite interaction of the
This is
whole
what you're talking
book so
about
far. We don't
for.
have time for that boy and then go juggle something is her retort. Like go juggle some. It made me think of that. I mean, I think about this probably daily, but I don't know if you remember that show, The State, like back from the '90s on MTV.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Well, they had like one sketch where they're all the superheroes of the Justice League, and they all like
Yeah,
arrive, and then there's some danger, and then Superman's directing everybody where to go, what to do, and he's like, Batman, do this, Flash,
right,
use your
right.
speed to do this, Wonder Woman, do this, and then they turn to Aquaman, and he's like, and Aquaman, go talk to some fish, and they all just
Right.
start laughing. It sounded just like that, but I'm like, go juggle something.
I
I
figured
did
this would
like
be the
it.
moment that would cement Min as a character you like
Yes.
because she was putting down Tom Maryland.
Yeah. I already like her. As I was saying last episode, I feel like this is further shipping Rand and Min, which I'm now completely on board with. And I want to say I feel like I got a lot of guff back a few chapters back where I said Tom was pretty skeevy, to be like, ooh, Egg, you be my personal assistant. I always pick the prettiest girls. Here is being skeevy again. I just want it on the record. This dude's skeevy.
Skeevy or
In
worldly? Which,
is there
which,
a difference? Is there?
right, is there? Is there?
But yeah, I find this pretty. This is a pretty skeevy comment that he just made.
Like I said, man, I love all the Tom hate. I feel you should continue to find these gems, these nuggets. Please
All right,
don't stop.
so men's like, okay, Nynaeve's in on this, involved in this,
Right.
and so we don't know what that means. I have all my sort of suspicions. You know, my team, Dark Nynaeve, Tom, Dark
Tell me.
One.
We're back. I
I'm
forgot
back to
about
that, yeah, and it might be,
Yeah.
and again, I feel like like I'm totally wrong, but clearly there's just like some more that Nynaeve's not telling us here. We'll talk at the end. I have another point where we're holding on to a mystery here just to hold on to a mystery, like on the thinnest of pretenses.
What?
But we will talk
No.
about it.
That wouldn't happen. I'm now looking forward to that. Awesome.
But she's like, yeah, you're in danger, and Rand's like, yeah, whatever. But Rand does look back once.
Oh yeah.
It's on with these two.
It's on the ship. They're both on board now.
They are good as shipped in my mind.
There it is.
Okay. So anyway, they all go in. Moraine and Nynaeve have been staring each other down for who knows how long. I like to think of this as they've been like waiting like 2 hours here, just staring at each other across this table. Because apparently Nynaeve refused to talk at all until she saw everybody. This I thought this was like a weird little dig, like who they're trying to avoid are decent people. And it's like, yeah, we're trying to avoid the decent people. That's what we're trying to do. Sure, Nynaeve.
Yeah, no, it's I enjoy that dig, right? Because it's meant to further emphasize she doesn't like believe that they're being chased by monsters and stuff, right? But right, obviously to them that's not the case. But it makes the question like, why does Nynaeve not believe it, considering the town was attacked, But I guess she wasn't there for the draw card, so yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So then Tom gets like really mad here, has a big speech about the children and how they'll, Spanish Inquisition you or whatever, and he doesn't want to be down with that. So okay, that's cool. I get that.
That would be crazy.
So there's more of this. So now, like, we were kind of talking last chapter about like why are the kids not asking like why us, or how did you know it was us? And so it's kind of coming out here that like they don't know at all why these three. But then I'm also confused because Moraine seemed to know everybody's birthdays pretty darn well when she was in town. So I guess like the Aes Sedai just all spread out, all took different kids of the same birthday. But aren't they all being like tracked by the Dark One, or just these three? I guess we don't know, huh?
Yeah, we're definitely not like privy to that information now, and we can also be questioning, I know previously that you've said that, overall Moraine seems good, so why wouldn't we trust her, right? But obviously there have been a lot of lines like you can't trust Aes Sedai, what they say isn't what they really mean, right? So like what she can be saying is in some ways true, but maybe she's also unreliable. I mean, don't get me wrong. Wait, I think no, I was about to say something that might have been a spoiler in terms of like the way Aes Sedai talk. But basically, I'm just saying that it is interesting. You were just talking to the chapter, like, why aren't they asking these questions? And then here we get like Nynaeve basically asking it, and then it revealed. But yeah, I think there is also a question of, is Moraine telling the truth completely about what she knows or not?
I also don't really remember like the point of going to Tar Valon would be to find out the answer to these questions. I thought the point of going to Tarfalan was like, this is the only place you'll be safe.
Right. Right.
So I don't know. It's a little mixed up in my mind, and I feel like boys could be
Mm,
asking more questions. Like even right here, instead of Rand going, maybe we'll find out in Tarvalon, maybe he could be like, well, like, how did you know to look for people of this birthday? Like, what? How, is that part of a prophecy? Is that part of a
mhm, mhm.
thing? Like it seems like it would occur to me to ask these questions. Um,
Right. Actually, it was funny because you highlighted Moraine. I thought this was Moraine saying, but it's really Rand saying it, right?
yeah, it's
I
Rand
mean,
saying
it
this.
does
Yeah.
feel a little weird for Rand to be like, I don't know why, but they are. And so this is more showing like his rationale, because Moraine has said you'll be safe here, but he's adding on like maybe we can find out why. But yeah, it does seem weird that like that's not the moment or a moment before where he was like, "Is that I'm saying this? Is this true? Will we find out why, Moraine? Tell me." But yeah, there's definitely not as many direct questions to Moraine asked as one might expect.
Yeah. Yeah. So so
I wonder if that's almost of the time, you know, not to use that as an excuse, right? But there's just I will say we've talked before that this first book does get some flack from being, Lord of the Rings esque, and I need to honestly reread Lord of the Rings to now. I'm like super curious. How much do we feel this about Gandalf? Like, how many moments are there like, wouldn't they have asked Gandalf right now? Or is it really deftly handled that Gandalf says he doesn't know, or Gandalf isn't there? You know, because it does feel in this time because they spend so long with Moraine, and there's so many of them, they're kids, and there are
mhm.
so many mysteries, that they wouldn't be like grilling her with more questions up front. And so it does I hear what you mean about it feeling like a little muddy here. Like she said they're going to Tarvalon for safety. He's sort of rationally, I think, saying like, well, it also nice to get some answers. Maybe I can go back home at some point. But that doesn't seem to be at the forefront of the conversation all the time, which we might expect it to be.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
I mean Lord of the Rings again, I haven't read it, but from the movies like there's no mystery at all. Like we once you
Yeah,
find out
they know that,
what the ring is,
right?
like Gandalf's like we need to go, I don't know, take this to the elves or whatever, or like
Sure.
I'm going to go with the elves, you guys go and hide or whatever. And then it all kind of makes sense. I mean, I guess Aragorn showing up is like a mystery for like 5 seconds or something, who he is.
Yeah, when
But
you first see him.
like
Um,
there's not really, I don't think the narrative is driven on mystery, whereas I feel like this
mm,
one massively is. Like that's like
yeah,
the point
yeah,
of
yeah.
interest to and it almost, I don't want to be too down on it. I'm
Mm,
interested in it, but I feel like it almost becomes like a tick, and it's like there's not
yeah.
enough trust in the rest of the narrative thrust. Like there's
Mhm.
not enough trust in like setting up, like I said I wanted before, like some clear stakes on what happens if you get caught, what you feel
Right,
like the vague threat, but because that's not there,
right,
what where you're
right.
trying to generate reader interest is being like, ooh, let me drop hints of things, let me
Mhm.
not tell you everything, and then you got to kind of have some weird reasons not to be revealing certain information at times that I just don't find 100% convincing.
Yeah, and it is sort of odd to me looking at it because one, I was just gonna say I completely agree. The core conceit of Lord of the Rings is not a mystery. Like we got to go destroy this ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe precisely how the ring is affecting people is mysterious or something, right? But like we know what the driving force action is, and here we do in a way too. Like we know they're trying to get from point A to point B to Tarvalon to be safe, right? But in the ring, it's like we're going there to destroy it. Here we're like we're going to Tarvalon to be like safe because someone's chasing us. We don't know why they're chasing it. So yeah, it's much more muddied. But to this, it does seem odd to me that it could have been done, right? It feels like there could have just been some very direct moments of Moraine, like, why are we why are we being chased?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me everything you do know. Why were you in our town to begin with, right?
Right.
Um,
What brought you there?
right. What
How'd
brought
you
you
know
there?
these
Why are you
ages?
right? Why are you asking questions? And I think maybe this could also be why some people do kind of lump this first book in more with sort of YA, like they're just sort of kids who are maybe not going to think to answer that question.
Mm,
Obviously, there's other kids that would totally ask those
mm,
questions, especially since there are four of them, right?
right.
But it does seem to revolve, especially in this part, heavily around that. Um, yeah, that unknown. No, I hear you. I do. I do.
Yeah, well, I'll show you the other part where I'm like, this is like information that is not being revealed for like I just couldn't understand why they didn't say it. Like I just
Yeah, yeah.
did
Well,
not
I
believe
mean,
it. But
I thought you were gonna save it to the end, but I'm kind of excited to see it
well,
early.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Let's jump to it. It's the part where like she's like, oh, somebody was born outside of Two Rivers,
Mhm.
right? And he's like, oh dang, I was
Right.
everything my dad said might be true. And then she's like, yeah, I knew you were born outside of Two Rivers. I know this thing about Tam, blah blah
Mhm.
blah. You know, I remember when she came into your arms, and that's why I was like, how old are you?
Mhm.
Which should have been
Right,
Rand's
right.
question. How old are you? Uh, but so then here's the thing. Um, it's so why didn't you tell her? Why didn't you tell Moraine? Again, people are not telling Moraine stuff
Right, right.
stupidly for no real good reason. The reason is it's none of an outlander's business. I mean, all right, except like this seems to be like key information to the Dark
Mhm.
One coming and doing I don't know what with you, you know? So like that
Mhm.
seems
Mhm.
paper thin. But then the thing that I really wasn't buying was were any of the others born outside? As soon as the question was out, he shook his head. No, don't answer. It's none of my business either. Like, okay, I don't know etiquette codes in Two Rivers lands, but this is some whack covering up here.
Mhm.
And at like this point I was like, he's just keeping this mystery, this like slim mystery of is Rand the whatever the main one of these three or not? Because
Mhm.
here I'm
Mhm.
going to throw this big bone at you that says he is because he was born
Right, right,
outside
right.
of, but because I don't want to 100% confirm that, or maybe he does want to do a twist, you know, later on to confound my expectations. He's like, oh, but we'll leave the possibility open that somebody else was also born outside. And I was just like annoyed with it. I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't care enough about that to be like, that is intriguing to me. I'm like, I don't know. I just want to be invested in if Rand's the main one, then he's the main one because that makes it important that I'm following Rand. And
Right,
Rand's
right.
that's why that's important for me. If it ends up, you know, one of the other ones is the main one, okay, cool. I would like to know that too. So I would like to know, like, well, why am I following Rand then right now?
Right.
And maybe there is a cool, good reason that I'm following Rand as opposed to this other one. But I think all of that
Mhm.
makes me care more than this guessing game makes me care.
Yeah, I think that one ties back to, why people read. And I feel like there
Mm-hmm.
just can be so many different reasons why. And I hear you that for you, like that's actually hurting it. Like you'd be more interested the other ways. I think for some people that mystery would, way make them more likely to turn pages.
Mm-hmm.
For those two parts, I do hear what you're saying about both. To me, those are a little more justifiable though than the why aren't they just asking Moraine direct questions? Like, I mean, I know the argument against, like, someone may say in the comments, the reason they're not asking Moraine direct questions is because she's like, I said you're not supposed to, so on and so forth. But they do seem to ask other questions. So I feel like that one's like a shakier one. But for these, at least to me, I get Nynaeve saying it's none of an Outlander's business because she doesn't trust Moraine at all. She thinks they literally like stole the kids without a reason. I could see more Rand deciding should I tell Moraine because I trust Moraine, right?
Mm.
I feel like this is an opportunity for Rand to think about his like what he wants to do with said information, right?
Right.
And then I think that could have been a way that could go. But then this one with like him saying don't answer, I view that as him being like, he doesn't even want to find out. You know what I mean? Like, he thinks I am the one, but I don't want to know that I'm the one. And that to me feels realistic to his character because he is really wishy-washy, right? And I feel like a lot of what we're talking about right now is wishy-washiness, right?
Yeah.
Like, I trust Moraine, I don't trust Moraine. Like, we're running, but we kind of don't know why. We're hoping to get to Tarvalon, but we don't quite know why. Like,
Right.
and there is a lot of this wishy-washiness, and I feel like the reason people would keep going in this story is because of the world building and they're wanting to see if the wishy-washiness does get answered. Um, and I do wonder, a lot of people talk about the book and series hitting their stride in book two. And I hear a lot of people say that, that's because, it starts really being its own world and stuff like that. But actually doing this with you, I'm starting to wonder how much of it is that we know like, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler for me to say, like, some of the questions you're talking about, they are answered as
Right.
we are, either ending this book or starting book two.
Right.
And I wonder if that is why it's a more enjoyable experience for people, because it's exactly what you're talking about, that once you know, now I can get invested.
Interesting. Is book two
Yeah.
not as mystery based, do you think?
Yeah. Well, one, I wouldn't even thought this one was. It's only through reading back with you that I'm
Huh.
realizing, like, yeah, they were, because I just forgot about it all, right?
Right, right.
Because at the end, right? And so you sort of forget the, like, oh yeah, in the first book, they're constantly like saying who it, maybe is. Um, so yeah, no, it's that some of the core, not all the mysteries, obviously.
Right.
Like a core mystery is taken care of. And so I do wonder if people are mischaracterizing why they like book two or three better than book one.
That's interesting.
That
What,
is
so
for me.
can you explain when they say like it's more of its own world now? Like what do they mean by that?
Yeah, so I think this one feels like the trope of regular farm boy
It feels too
kid.
similar to other
Right, right.
fantasy.
I think it's just similar story structure of like,
Gotcha.
I'm living my life. Wise person comes here. Things
Right.
go crazy. I'm off with the wise person on an adventure,
Right.
trying to figure out what's happening. Right.
Gotcha.
Um, whereas the other ones are more just like, I, I don't even think I can sum up, what happening, because it all just becomes this big sort of rolling stone of what happens
Mm-hmm.
when you do have a chosen whatever person and things are happening with the two sides and all these factions. You already see the number of factions that are happening here.
Right,
Like,
right.
you got Marine with the Eyes to Die. You've got these, white cloaks, right? These children, you've got these various people of nations, right? Like the governor of the tier. Like, I'm just saying, there's a lot of different groups, you know what I mean?
Right.
Uh, and we've already seen in this book that we got some perspective from the bad guys, right? And that keeps happening. Like, one of the reasons I love this series is because you get a lot of chapters, like, throughout the book about the quote unquote bad guys. And that's really cool.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, and again, well, one last thing to consider is this book is also largely rant, right?
Uh-huh.
Whereas future books, you're getting all sorts of characters.
Right.
Like, so uh, I
As
think,
POV characters.
yeah, as POV characters. So I think there's a lot of things that change, as you hit. But I do wonder how much of it is what we're talking about here.
That is interesting.
At
Oh,
least
you
what we
got
were-
me intrigued now, man. Are you trying to rope me in to read the second book? See. I do
Ooh,
love analyzing, like,
mhm, right,
why that is out there. Why people are like, "Oh, I think it hits its stride in the second book." Like, what's the
right,
difference? What's the narrative
exactly,
difference? And
exactly.
interesting.
Well, so something we can, maybe do in the future. Probably not soon,
We will
but
see. Where's our percentage here? 32%. 32%. Well, we,
yeah,
we shall see.
no, we haven't even hit a third yet. So maybe we just come on the way. But no,
Almost a
no,
third. Almost a third.
I
We're
know
almost
almost.
there.
But I'm really glad you brought that point up because I could see how it could be annoying to just show me what's happening. Um,
Yeah. Like, just that it's none of my business. I'm like, oh, come on, man.
I do. For me, that kind of like, I don't know, that one about Rand, I'm like, yeah, would I want to know that I'm the one that the Dark One's searching for? that does seem kind of scary and freaky.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I didn't want to know for as long as I can. Like, give me the bad news later. Give me the diagnosis. You know what I'm saying? But I hear from a reader perspective that can be frustrating.
Yeah, I mean that you're right. You got like some classic Rand wishy-washiness right here. It
Right.
would be nice to know, would
Right.
it?
Right. Yeah, but what if,
Would
wait,
it?
hold on. This
Oh
sounds bad.
God. I do like her. Wait, do I? I don't
Right?
know.
Yeah, at least it's on brand. It's on brand.
It's
There it is.
very on brand for Rand.
And
Yeah.
one last thing that I do just want to put out there. When people talk about their favorite characters from this book, sometimes it's Rand, but that's not usually the one you hear.
Right.
So like, I do wonder about that as well, right?
That's funny. I was I was talking to my students and like I was
Mhm.
asking them what anime to watch and like a lot of
Right,
them
right.
yell out Attack on Titan, so I tried to
Of
watch
course.
Attack on Titan. And man, Jeff, people are like my one impression of that first episode is that people just screamed every line. Like it made it so that
Uh,
like the end, it makes sense that everybody's screaming. But to me,
right.
I was like, everybody's been screaming this whole entire episode. So like emotionally, the tenor feels exactly the same when the kid's mom is getting eaten versus when he was just yelling at soldiers for not doing a patrol or something. Like it was just like constant. And then my students were like, yeah, nobody likes Aaron. And I'm like, well, that's a problem. He's the main character of the
So
thing.
you think that? You think that? That's gross. I gotta say, I am now the most hurt that I've ever been in any of these videos done because you watched the show that students told you to watch, and not anyone that I have told you to watch.
I'm
Notice I
sorry,
did not
man.
recommend Attack on Titan to you. You notice that? But yeah,
Mm.
I was gonna say I need to. I actually stopped watching Attack on Titan, but I need to go back now that it's like
Yeah,
done.
no, I've
But
heard.
what you need to watch is Promise Neverland. That's what you
Oh
need to
yeah,
watch.
no, they actually suggested that as well. I should
I
probably
know
check
they
that
did.
out.
That's why I'm suggesting it because I
Mm.
know they have, and so if we got both, you might do it.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha.
I do see why you brought that up because yeah, Aaron isn't a character people like. It's the same with Black Clover. A lot of people like actually hate the voice actor for that
Mm.
because he really screams all the lines. Maybe it's not the voice actor's fault. Maybe it's the director's, right? But there's a
I
show
feel
called
like
Black
that's
Clover.
common in anime dubs, and I don't
No.
know. I
Oh,
should
you listen to it dubbed.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I'm wondering,
uh,
well, so there was
yeah.
like two versions. There was the Hulu version, but then it started like playing a million commercials, and then there's like I was like, "Oh, I can also watch it on Tubi or something," which is like I'm probably giving away how much of an old man I am now at this point, but it was like some other like service seemed to specialize in anime, and then that one was subtitled. And no, you're right. Like the kid's voice is like full tilt all the time. But I also kind of wonder, like, if culturally there's just something different in Japanese, but then like the American actor listens to like the original and goes, "Oh, I'm supposed to do it like this," and just like yells the whole time.
Yeah,
And like that
I,
might be a cultural thing, dude. You might be able to just
I,
do it a normal
I,
way.
I mean, I can't comment on that because I generally just watch things subtitled, and I would say like the one that I mentioned about Blue Clover is like an exception. Like normally that is not the case.
Mhm.
But okay, I mean there is screaming and yelling and it's relatively common in anime, but not like all the time. But I feel like I took your comment that was actually relevant to our conversation about how the main character in a massively popular anime actually is not people's necessarily favorite
Very
character. Like I
funny.
don't
Yeah,
like that
that's really interesting.
and then we see the same thing here. So yeah, it is fascinating to see like a series succeed without that. But I would say this Eye of the World is even harder because it's all from Rand's POV, right?
Mhm.
Whereas with Attack on Titan, you are going to get more scenes with other characters, which
Yeah.
I mean do happen eventually in this book too. But I wonder, would Eye of the World be like, would Wheel of Time be as popular as it is if it was only ever Rand's perspective for the entire novel, right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't think it would be.
Yeah, interesting. All right, I'm not sure if there's that much more in this chapter. I really had a note
Mm.
about. Of course, we we find out Nynaeve is like a master tracker.
Yeah, I
Wait,
mean that's my favorite part. My favorite part is Lan. Like, I feel like there's such an amazing payoff of Lan just being so unaffected by most things. I mean, obviously he freaked out when Moraine wanted to bring more people on their trip, right? But otherwise, pretty unaffected. And then he's like shocked that Nynaeve was tracking the way she was. So that to me, I love
Right. Again,
personally.
few can do that even in the Borderlands. Like she's so
Mm,
good. I,
she's so good.
all right. All right,
So good.
sure. Now you have to agree that has like not been set up at all. It's
What do
just
you think
so
she explains it right here about her dad, dude? For those who don't know why I'm saying that. So normally, right, in order to set something up, you would set it up previously, right? So yeah, it would have been a little more ideal if like while we were in the Two Rivers, people were like, that wisdom, she's so young. But man, can
or
she
even
track,
just like
right?
mention who her dad is maybe
Right.
like in an
Like if we had
earlier
learned about her
thing. Yeah, then
dad.
I might be more like, okay, I remember them talking about her dad. Okay, her dad taught her this. But that
Yeah.
was really just like, oh, we're putting Nynaeve here, and now here's post hoc the explanation for how she can do
Right.
this. And I don't know, I was like, all right,
It
fine,
is
but I'm not super sold.
there could it would have been such an easy add to. I mean, don't get me wrong, I say easy, and we both know from writing
Mm,
like
yeah.
that there can be so many threats, that you're trying to track. But in retrospect, looking at the book, considering that we often talk, or Rand often thinks about like Tam winning the bow, and like I think it's coming that Matt's dad is. Oh, I don't know if it's somebody's good with like horses or whatever, but
Mm,
like it wouldn't have been that hard if Rand was thinking about tracking how Tam is almost as good
mm-hmm.
as like his dad, who
Right,
was
right.
like it could just been one little throwaway line, and then all of a sudden this hits, and we're like, oh yeah, if she could,
No,
right?
it is
And
funny how
that is
like yeah, it's funny how you can do that and you can just like go
yeah,
back and because obviously you're not going to come up with it at the time, but if you just
sure.
think about it, you can go, let's take this Google Doc back a couple pages and boom, and it makes a big difference, I think,
It,
as you're
I would
reading.
agree. It does. It takes because you were saying before, like, how did Nynaeve do this, right? With
Mm-hmm.
like the thing and everything. Because yeah, she's been set up as like bossy and opinionated, but we hadn't learned about this skill, and we didn't even fully need to. We could have just had the dad drop and then the dad story reveal here, and then like we're connecting the dots, and
Right.
then we feel, you know what I mean? And yeah, it can just be really, really satisfying.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. There's definitely an art to it because you want that Nynaeve appearing to be a surprise. Like it was
Right,
definitely a super surprise to me because it
right,
was
right,
entirely out of left field. And so if you do belabor too much him being a
right.
tracker or whatever, you'd be like, okay, it's not as you don't get that same big hit. So it's a balancing act. I guess
For
there's
sure.
no easy formula for it or whatever. All right. So,
I think what got me was this Outlander phrasing. I was like, did they say Outlander before? You
oh
know,
yeah, that's a new
I was
word,
like, wait
right?
a second. When we were in the Two Rivers, did the people call like Moraine and them Outlanders? I'm like, I gotta go back and check. And then I just think of the show Outlander. You know what
Right,
I mean?
right.
It was just like a funny moment. I was like, wait, did he just come up with this word right now? Or am I just totally forgetting it because we're, doing this one week at a time, the way it's spread out.
That's interesting.
Yeah, just because that can happen. I feel like when you're writing, you're like, oh, I've got this cool term, and then you
Mm-hmm.
might be not include it early. And again, I could be totally wrong. Maybe the people of the Two Rivers called them Outlanders,
Yeah.
but it has just been a bit, and I was like, wait, was that usual? But yeah, I didn't have much else in this chapter too. This chapter is pretty darn enjoyable to me because Nynaeve showing up was such a surprise, Nynaeve. And then the way she acts is just like very on brand for me, like not trusting Moraine and causing more conflict, and and the end line to me is great. It's like today I'm gonna have a bath, right?
Right.
For the rest we'll see. So it's just like I don't know. I feel like at least in this chapter, people have for those who read the whole series, there's different reactions to Nynaeve, but I thoroughly enjoy Nynaeve in this chapter.
Interesting. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other things that again point you towards
Mm-hmm.
Rand being the
Mm-hmm.
most important here, like the kind of way he speaks for everybody in this
Right.
scene, like they all kind of, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
they like in any way overtly push him to be the one to talk to Nynaeve, but he just sort of takes that command. And then I highlighted this. Moraine sat back in her chair watching him over steepled fingers. It seems like she's interested in
Right.
Rand more than the others, which of course is what he was kind of asking about afterwards. And then when Nynaeve comes out at the end, she's like, okay, I'm just going to talk to you. And everybody else is going to instantly disappear, which made me wonder why they were all standing around after the meeting anyway, if they were just going to like bolt the second that Nynaeve came out. But yeah, all those are just kind of pointing towards, I mean, Ram being the most important one. So, like, we'll have to see if there's some big reveal that he's not. We'll have to see how I feel then about that, too, because
I'm waiting.
We'll have maybe a big discussion about reveals, and we'll get into Steve's feelings about reveals, which I'm sure everybody will agree with.
I can't wait.
All right. One last thing for me. There were quite a few wildlife analogies. No, there were just two main wildlife analogies.
I know it feels like a lot, but
yeah, it feels like a lot. Neither of which I think I completely understood here. So whether the bear beats the wolf or the wolf beats the bear, the rabbit always loses. Okay, I get it. Bottom of the food chain. But I think the rabbit would be happy for the bear and the wolf to be beating on each other. Frankly, that would be time out of them eating you. So that's probably a good thing.
I can get away. I'm running.
Yeah, I'm out. You guys have fun. I'm out. And then he said something about like grabbing. Sometimes you have to grab the wolf by the ears. I'm wondering when this situation does exactly come up, when you have to grab the wolf by the ears.
Yeah, no, like sometimes you have to grab the wolf by your ears, but when you have the wolf by the ears, start to like go as you go.
I could not. This was a hard metaphor for me. I was like, wait, when would you be in this situation?
You're gonna grab those wolf ears.
Wait, isn't there a saying in English? What's the grab? It's not grab the wolf by the ears. Is there like a common saying in English?
Cat by the tail, isn't it?
Grab the cat by the tail.
No. So I was gonna say, I'm surprised it wasn't. But grab a bull by the horns.
That's what I'm thinking of. Grab the bull by the horns. Yeah, is the one that the common saying.
Right.
Grab the wolf by the ears. But they don't.
I feel like he's going close to that, right? Well, because he added the other half. We normally say sometimes you just got to grab the bull by the horns to take charge, right? But we don't say you grab the bull by the horns. Good luck holding on,
right?
Or letting go or whatever.
But there, I can see a situation where a bull is livestock. You own this thing. I understand having to grab it by the horns. I do not understand the situation when you're like, oh, this wolf. Let me grab his ears. That does not seem advisable ever in any situation.
The way you said that got me. But yeah, no, I agree. It does sound like, the bull by the horns, I assume, came about because of farmers, right?
Right.
Like, hearing stories of my grandpa and like trying to get the cattle to go where you want it to go can be a pain, right? So yeah, that's got some rationale behind it. Whereas the wolf ears one, like, yeah, it doesn't seem like something.
I just want to ask him. I mean, maybe that's a thing you got to do sometimes in Two Rivers. I don't know.
Right, and exactly. Maybe they were saying that wolves were becoming more common these days.
It's true.
Times being
this is a more recent saying that has come up.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe this was just came up. He does say old saying there, which kind of breaks it. And it's funny that we're kind of going in on this stuff, right? But like, I feel that that's what you do as a writer, right? You're sitting there and you're like, okay, I need some sort of saying. I could go bull by the horn. Too much.
Right.
And then you're like, I'll make it an old saying. But then we read it, us being us, we're like, but wait a second. Isn't this a new problem? Right? Exactly. But I love that you brought that up. It's totally true. And so that's the thing, certain things, certain people are going to nitpick because, well, it's fun and that's just the way our brains work. And then other people are going to read and they're going to be fine. You just be like, yeah, wolf by the ears. That sounds terrible. And yeah, I wouldn't want to let go. But,
Right.
you know, I imagine holding my dog by the ears, he can just lunge forward and bite me if he wanted to. You know, that way I won't hold by the ears and holding it back, right?
I mean,
But
let's be real. Your dog is a wolf, so
I mean,
you know better than any
true.
of us.
I was literally thinking of holding his ears right now. I'm like, wait a second. He just leans in and like licks my face anyway. It's not stopping him in the slightest. But I got to say, I do like that we get these here, even if they sound a little funny or don't make 100% sense. I do feel like that is how some sayings are, and I'd rather have them than not, because to me it
Yeah.
does put me in this sort of like old-timey farmer perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that Robert Jordan is doing something here that he's writing about a farmer without ever actually telling us anything about farming. You know what I mean? Like there are stories you read where someone describes doing something like, I don't know, using a loom or whatever. And you're like, oh, wow, I think this person really knows about using, I feel like I'm learning about looming or whatever it's called. Whereas as here, like, I don't think any of us are becoming better farmers from listening to Rand. But like, I believe that Rand grew up in a farm, even though that's not happening. So I think Robert Jordan is doing something fascinating here, of like seemingly not researching old farming practice whatsoever, but throwing enough stuff like this our way that I feel immersed. And maybe that's not, you know, hitting for you. But like I said, I'd rather have it than not.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Like, if I was just reading this straight, I would just pass like right over those, and like but I think the main reason is I'm highlighting stuff with the exact intent that I need to find things to talk about on this podcast. So like, if it does seem overly nitpicky, that's why, because we need to fill up. I guess we don't need to fill up 45 minutes every single time.
I don't know why you did that, man. We like forever anyway. So we're like, how long ago did we say we don't have anything more to talk about?
Right.
Not like 15 minutes ago. Yeah, I mean, I do completely agree. Reading and commenting this way, it's a different reading experience than for regular, you know? But I also think you don't need to worry about finding stuff for us to talk about. We'll fill the time.
I know. I just couldn't help it. I had to talk about wolf's ears. All right. So, prediction time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, for the rest, we will have to see, won't we? Okay, so obviously, Nynaeve's not taking him back to Two Rivers. That's not happening.
Imagine if it did.
Yeah, a twist. But I feel like that's not happening. I feel like Nynaeve's not just going to leave them either. The reason I say that is because of the sparks that my girl Min is seeing now around the mall. So I feel like she's going to be with the band now going forward for some reason. That's my prediction. Maybe it's wrong, but that's what I'm feeling right now.
Well, the next title gives us no clue as to whether or not you are right.
Yeah, it's true.
Watchers and
Watchers and Hunters. What? Okay. I guess we will find out. And we got that fang again. There's that fang.
We will. I know it's there.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next week.
See you then.